Good evening, everyone. I am your host and instructor, Laney Shaughnessy, and welcome to Spindle TV, your best source for CNC CAD/CAM training videos. Spindle TV is brought to you by Digital Woodcarver, inspiring your creativity and providing you with the tools to create your own unique masterpieces. Hello, everyone. Hello. How are y'all doing tonight? Hopefully you're doing well. We're going to do some frame making tonight. Hopefully things go well with tonight's class. And we'll get started here in just a few minutes. We'll give everybody a chance to let everyone in, and then we'll get started. No, Ronnie, I'm not sure if everybody has a black screen. They should be doing should have a picture of me and my bad hair day. I gotta go get a haircut so I can get rid of this hat that I've been wearing for days on end. All right. We'll give a couple of minutes here and give everybody a chance to get up. I posted that it was going to be 7:15. We're going to do something different tonight, and we're going to see how well it works out with the class. I'm going to try to give you guys a little bit of insight as to where we're heading. We're going to do an hour session. From 7 to 8:15, 7:15 to 8:15, and then we're going to open up for some questions. We're going to finish up one project, and then we're going to open it up for some questions, and then if we need to go into a second project or something, we will. But we're going to try to pace this out and see how well that we do and everything. And I want to thank everybody's input on, Stephen and Glenn and everything on some input on structuring the classes, and we'll see what we can do. All right, so let's switch over to our project board, our VCarve Pro. Had to think about what it was for a moment. Let's switch over to our VCarve Pro. And let me make sure that I've got everything good here. We'll switch over. And now one of the things, one of the recommendations is that it's hard to follow my white mouse. That it's hard to see on the screen from time to time. And so one of the things, and I just remembered that little recommendation, but let's see if we can take a minute and let's see if we can adjust my mouse a little bit. Let's see if I could change my mouse a little bit. Additional mouse options. Alright, let's adjust the pointer. Windows black. Bear with me. Let me see if there's any options. All right. Let's see if that works. Enable pointer shadow. do I want to display a pointer trail? Show location of pointer when I press the control key. Alright, we'll see if that works. Automatically move the pointer default buttons. Alright, let's see if we can enhance this a little bit. Alright. I don't know if you guys and girls are able to see that a little bit better, but we'll give it a shot and see if that mouse works well. Now, if I hold my control key down, you'll be able to see me where I'm kind of pointing at. You see that little highlighted ball there? Ooh, getting fancy. All right. Okay, tonight's class, we're gonna do a mirror type project. Not a mirror. Let me rephrase that. A frame that could be used for like a large wall mirror. You know, like a wall mirror or something. Not necessarily large. That's another word that, you know, I want to kind of take away, because you guys may be working on the mini carver or something. We're going to work on a frame, and it will be a two-sided job, because I think we're going to make the frame in one piece, but I'm also going to show how we can create it in multiple pieces to be assembled. Off the table. So we'll see if we can kind of structure it a little bit differently, a couple of ways. But this could be framing around an image. It could be framing around a mirror, piece of glass. It could be framing around a piece of wall art, like a canvas or something. And so we're going to see what we can do by creating a nice frame outline and go from there. Now, tonight's project is we're going to start with new file. And let me know if things work out for us as far as our mouse and stuff. But this file is going to be a double-sided job. And the double-sided job is going to be, one side we're going to be cutting out kind of the rabbets and stuff, the rabbets and everything, for whatever it is that's going to go into our frame. And then I think I want to try to stay within the size of our table and stuff, but just know that you can scale this up or down, this type of project up or down one way or another. So let's go with a width of it all also is going to be dependent on the mirror, the glass, and all. I know we can cut down glass and things like that, but it's going to be dependent on that. But let's go with 23 and a half wide. And let's go with 17 and a quarter on the height. And I actually want to reverse that later. Just imagine this board is going to be laying this way. We're going to be cutting the frame out of it along the x-axis. Do I want to... It would be much bigger if I wanted, I typically, like for the larger tables and stuff, I would do probably about 30 inches by 21 or 22, for the larger CNCs. But let's go with 23 and a half by 17 and a quarter. We'll get the concept down and everything, and we'll go from there. This is going to be a 3/4 inch piece of material. Depending on the type of detail that you want for your frame and stuff, you could go with something, some thicker stock. You could glue up some thicker stock and things. And, maximize my V-carve. Sorry about that. There we go. Thank you, Bob. Sorry about that. And we're gonna go with a 3/4. And what we're going to do is we are going to, on the Z0 position, we're going to be referencing off the same side of the material as our touch off. So for the first part, we're going to be working off the material surface. For side number 1, we're going to touch off, but we're going to be zeroing off the same side of the board. So when that board gets flipped over, we're going to be referencing off of our waste board, zeroing off our waste board, so that we get a nice consistent thickness in our cut and all, because we're going to be doing some pocketing and things like that. I do want to, for this, I do want to work off the center, because our center is going to end up being cut out, but through the whole project it's pretty much going to be left kind of unscathed. So we'll start off in the center for this project, and I will be flipping this project along my x-axis, along the x-axis. So I will flip it along the x-axis. So we're going to click OK on this, and now we can start kind of laying out. Now this is going to be really a in a sense non-traditional frame. I'd like to be able to bring some models into it, but also I'd like to bring in some vectors for tracing and things as well. So we're going to be going on Google, and we're going to be looking for some decorative designs and things like that as well to bring in this frame. But let's go ahead and get the thing started. I'm going to open up the rectangle tool, and for the first part of this, I want to just lay out my frame area, and then I'm going to start building parts off of it with additional rectangles and things like that. But for this first part, what I'm going to do is I am going to snap to the top corner of the board here, and you guys can see that mouse up there in the corner, and I'm going to hold down my left mouse button, and I am going to drag and snap to the other corner here. And from there, I'm going to offset this rectangle inward off of my board. I want to leave a little bit of room for clamping and things like that. So I'm going to go inward a ½ inch all the way around. So we're going to go inward a ½ inch. Okay. And this is going to be the maximum width of my frame and everything. Now on here, I want my frame rails and stiles. Let's call them our rails and stiles. I want them to have some meat to them. And so I'm going to take this current rectangle here, and I'm going to offset this inward a good, I think 2½ inches. Okay, and this is going to be, the frame. And what that will leave me with is that's going to leave me with an internal area for my wall art or picture or what have you, with a size of about 17½ by 11¼ So remember, this can all be scaled up or it can be scaled down depending on the project at hand. And so with that, on the rails and things, I want to have some nice corner areas, and then I want to do some nice detail within here. And as I get I'm kind of laying out the front, the top part of the board, the top part of the design, and then we're going to be flipping this over to create all the rabbit areas and stuff once we get the top laid out, to see how we're going to lay out our rabbits and things, the pockets and cut through and stuff. But also at the same time, we've got to remember, and I didn't give myself that much room for my alignment pins. I think I left a little bit of room here, a ½ inch, so I should have enough room for my 1/4 inch pin on both ends here. But also we got to keep that in mind. We'll don't forget to remind me to draw that in if I forget. All right, for the corner sconces, or oh god, what would the name be? Rosettes, in a sense, or the kind of the corner detail. Let's call it the corner detail. I don't know the exact terminology. What I'd like to do is I'd like to have a little bit of overhang in my corners and all. So what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm going to take and draw a rectangle, and I'm going to snap to this outside rectangle here, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to snap to this corner and kind of build up that corner just like that. And I'm going to offset it outward so I know exactly how much it's getting offset. And so for that corner piece, I want to offset that from its size outward. Oh, let's go 3/8. Oops, I want sharp corners. So let me undo that. I'm going to undo Control Z to undo, and also you can right click and click undo. But I want to undo that because I want sharp corners when I do this. I want sharp corners. And I do want to delete the original. So let's offset that out. And now on this, I want to, as I double click on it to put it in transform mode, I can now grab the line and I can snap it over to my project area here. And then I'm going to grab this upper line and snap it to that upper line area as well there too. So I want this overhang here. Okay. All right. Now it could be cool, you know, if I were to undo this back to where it was, it could be cool to have it overhang on both sides and have this area larger and things for the frame. That might even look good. But for right now, I'm just going to have it, you know, at this corner here. Now that I have that positioned, I'm going to mirror this, and I want to create a mirror copy of it, and I want to flip it horizontally first, then vertically, then horizontally again. Okay. All right. Now my outlines here, they are just for outline purposes. I want to use them to be able to snap to, but eventually we're going to be moving those. So we might as well get ahead of the gamut right now. And I want to take both of these and I want to move them to their own layer. And that layer is going to be called my master boundaries. Did I spell boundaries right, or is it with an R? Boundaries. We'll go with boundaries. And I'm going to make them red so they kind of stand out. That way I can turn them off in a moment, but I want to leave them visible for right now. And I want them red. Now, what my intention is I want to draw a rectangle here within this area to kind of connect these two pieces together. I'm going to be using this as boundary because I'm going to be doing some artwork in these corners and along the frame. And so I want to be able to have those boundary areas. So I've got my two borders here for the purpose of being able to snap to these corners and things. When I open up my rectangle tool, I want to be able to snap to that corner, and I want to drag a rectangle down, and I want to be able to snap to this corner over here. And I'm going to do the same thing on all four sides. I'm going to grab this corner and I'm going to drag a rectangle down and snap here. I'm going to go from this corner, it doesn't matter what corner you go from, we can go from this corner up here, and I'm going to drag and snap to here. And I'm going to go here and drag and snap to there. Okay, so now if I turn off my master boundaries layer, you'll see that I have these individual rectangles. Oops, let me close my rectangle tool. I got these individual, frame areas for my rails and stiles and things. Okay, so my master boundaries, that layer is still there. And I'm gonna, just turn it off. I don't need it visible anymore. making sure that I'm still working in layer 1. We'll separate these other things. I'm going to grab my corner boundaries, holding down my shift key as I'm selecting more than one item. And I want to move those to their own layer. And these are going to be my corner boundaries. I probably don't have boundary spelled correctly, but well, you know what I mean. Let's on the corner, let's kind of differentiate the corners a little bit, and let's give them a color of, I don't know, aqua, turquoise, something that stands out, you know, something that might be visible. Let's look and see what sky blue looks like and see if it stands out. Can you guys and girls see that blue? Might not be able to. It's kind of light. Let's see if we can change that color. See if we can get a dark, kind of almost like a dark color there. There we go. You should be able to see the differentiation in that color, kind of a brown, you know. So we've got our 4 corner areas here. Or, you know, our let's call it our rails and style, and then we've got our 4 corner blocks. Now all of this is going to be one project, you know, when it gets cut out, unless we want to literally create some joinery in the back here where these rails and stiles will snap into the back part of these corner stocks. And what that would allow for is that would allow for us to make a bigger project and just cut the pieces out individually. So we'll take a look at that as well. But for right now. Now, I'm going to look at the existing clip art that comes with the software to see what we've got to work with as far as our existing models. You know, very rarely do we ever, you know, kind of take a poke around into our existing models and things. And I want to look in my weave area and see if there's anything that really jumps out at me as far as a nice, you know, 3D corner area. And, you know, I don't know. Let's drag this up and see. You know, if I wanted to make a Celtic frame, right? You know, something, you know, kind of Celtic design. Little basic, a little bland and all. We might end up just kind of looking for something else. I want to kind of give it some more ornate. So that's a good possibility. So what I'll do for right now is move that off to the side as a possible. Let's look and see what else we got. Let's go under decorative. And let's see what we've got here. We got a Florida leaf. That'd be pretty cool. We got a nice little flourish here. Let's drag that on. Hold down my shift key and see if I can size and center that. I'm sizing it within my block here. Let's look at that in a 3D model. That doesn't look too shabby. So let's go with that one for right now. Let's go back to our 2D view. And I want to make sure that it's centered up inside of my corner boundary. So with it selected, I'm going to hold down my shift key and select that corner boundary. And I'm going to go into the either the modeling or the drawing tab. Actually the drawing tab. And I'm going to make sure in my alignment tool that it's centered. There we go. So now it's nice and centered. And now that I have it centered, I should be able to mirror this to create my other 4 pieces. And we're going to go, we're going to take and just select the model. We're going to flip it horizontally. Give it a second to generate. All right, we're going to flip that vertically. Give it a second to generate that model. We could have probably just, you know, quicker and easier. We could have probably drug it around and snap to the center. So for those of you that don't know how to do that, when you click on an object and put it in transform mode, if I were to hold down my control key, I could drag a copy off, and as I move over toward the center of my object, you will see a snap point pop up, that circle with the dot in the middle, and you know, that's our snap point. So we can drag and drop that, you know, on that center point there. So that's another way of bringing our, you know, parts over besides mirror. But I could have just done one more horizontal mirror and brought it over to that center. Now, if you're not sure if it landed in center, you're kind of, you know, you're unsure that, oh, did it snap to that point? Well, double check it. You know, grab the part, hold down your shift key, grab the boundary, that rectangle boundary, open up your alignment tool and align to selection, that rectangle, that last thing. We can click on it, and of course we won't have any movement because it is centered. But if in case you worry if you missed your mark, you can always double check that. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got here so far. All right, so we've got our 4 corner areas. That's going to be our decorative corner areas. Now, you know, we could continue, you know, maybe doing a nice 3D model or something in here in the frame, but I do want to do some text in this area here, possibly. But I also want to talk about, you know, creating flourishes and things like that as well from images that we find online and stuff. But before I do that, let's go back into our clip art and let's see if we have anything that, you know, to be able to go into these rails and styles and stuff, I would need something that has, you know, kind of a linear look to it. And I'm not really seeing anything. I could, you know, let me show you how to do this. I could come over and drag this here, and I could size this down. And then I could mirror this part. If we go into our drawing tab, I could mirror this. And I could flip it vertically when, you know, mirroring this about job center. And I could create some, you know, a really nice, you know, and I could do that on all 4 sides to create a really nice looking kind of flourish design. I could also blend these together, and one of the things is I want to show you about the new V9's mirroring feature in the modeling tools. Now in the modeling tools right now under the component tree, I've got everything on level 1, and with level 1 right now it has just a standard mode. But if I were to insert a new level, I could take my flourish here and I'm going to drag it up into that new level, and I'm going to create a new level from that, and I'm going to rename these levels now. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename this level, and this level is going to be mirror vertical, and this level here is going to be renamed to mirror horizontal. And I'm going to take a copy of this and I'm going to copy it, and let's take a copy. I've already copied it. Let's do it again so you can see. I can right click and click copy, And that way, that will allow me to move this. So I want to move this up here. I'll rotate it in a minute. But if I come back and hit paste now, it'll paste my original back in the position that it was. Now I want to take this guy here and I want to rotate him 90 degrees. And so I'm going to open up the rotate tool, and on his center, I want to rotate 90 degrees. And I want to click apply. All right. I want to select this rectangle here while I've got the component, that leaf, that fleur-de-lis, or whatever it is. Not a fleur-de-lis, sorry. I called it the wrong name. Let's call it the leaf. While I've got it here, I can select this rectangle, and with my alignment tool, I can make sure that I'm aligned up and down in that position and stuff. And on this one, I am going to kind of distort it a little bit. I'm going to kind of stretch it out, give it a little bit of distortion. And I want to move it to where a little bit of it, not much, just a little bit, is overlapping my center line. All right. This here, in a standard mode, when you have a standard level in your component tree, if we look right now, and I haven't mirrored my levels yet, my horizontal, vertical, I haven't set them to mirror. Right now they're still basically as standards as my level 1, which I'll rename to my main level. But right now I have 2 leaf flourishes on this end. So if we look at our 3D view, you'll see those 2 here. Okay. When I'm in mirror mode, I wouldn't need this second one, but in a standard mode, non-mirrored, my mirror mode is no mirroring right now. So basically, if I want to create that mirror copy, I have to physically create it. But I want to put my vertical and my horizontal designs in a mirror mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy and we're going to delete him. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to mirror him. First of all, I'm going to mirror him, physically mirror him across my job center horizontally. So he lands over, a mirror copy of it lands over here. And the same thing with this flourish here. I'm going to do a physical mirror to the other side of the board, make a mirror copy of him vertically across the job center. Okay. And one thing I notice right now, I'm kind of a little bit backwards. I've got the hump of this flourish facing in towards the frame, but here I've got it facing out. I think a little bit of consistency would make sense. So I'm going to rotate this guy. I'm going to flip him over to the right for a minute. So let's go into our mirror, and I'm not going to flip. I'm not going to create a mirror copy, and I'm not going to flip it about the job center. I'm just going to flip this vertical. There we go. And the same thing here. I'm going to grab him and I'm going to flip him vertical. There we go. All right. This will make sense in a second. Now, when you have mirror mode turned on in your levels, it looks at our quadrants here, these 4 quadrants. This line, I'm working off the center. My board is broken into 4 quadrants, and it's looking at my 0, 0 point for mirroring. And working off center of this really is ideal, because whatever is on the left side is going to be mirrored automatically to the right side when I mirror vertically, or horizontally, sorry. When I mirror vertically, everything in this upper quadrant is going to be mirrored down to this lower quadrant. And so if as you see up here across the top, as I overlap that line a little bit, the new mirror mode is going to, when it mirrors, it's going to blend those two parts together seamlessly, which is really awesome. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure that my flourishes are in the right place. So I want these two guys here to mirror vertically. This one here and this one. That's these two components. And these two components, I want to mirror horizontally. So I'm going to drop them and drag and drop them up into my other level here. So they're together. And now I can go in and reset my mirror mode. So my horizontal, I want to mirror from left to right. Okay? I want to mirror left to right. For my vertical, I want to mirror from my top, let's see here, to bottom. Top to bottom. So everything in this upper quadrant is going to be mirrored to the bottom quadrant. So top to bottom. Now, you're not going to see anything in the 2D view. Everything still looks the same. But if we go over to our 3D view, did I turn my mirror mode on? Bear with me. That's my top to bottom. Hold on now. Hold on a minute. Left to right. Top to bottom. Yeah, what's going on there? Okay, so let's bear with me a second. I'm not getting my mirrored effect here. Why aren't you mirroring? Somebody probably knows the answer to this one. Let's see here. Combine mode. I know I don't have to be way down here. Let's move this down. There's my top to bottom. Okay. I've got copies here, and everything is kind of getting mirrored in the appropriate spacing. So if I move this back up, is my mirror mode gonna do that to me? If I move that back up, then it brings that back down. Oh man, hold on a second. I don't want that effect. Let's let me get rid of two things here. I'm gonna get rid of this flourish. I'll keep that one. I'm gonna get rid of this flourish. I'll keep this one. Oh, that's a shame that that's going to do that. So left to right, it's mirroring at that far distance, and that's not what I want. Okay, we're at a standstill here for a second. I think I might have things backwards. Let me see here. Mirror horizontally. Let me check out my mirror mode and see if I've got the wrong mirror. Left to right. Top left quadrant. That's what I want. Okay, I had the mirror mode wrong. I knew something was throwing me off there for a second. Okay, so I was like, wait a minute. All right. I knew there was a simple answer, but I was like, I wasn't sure. Okay, so let's change this mirror mode here. And we want the that was top left quadrant. There we go. All right. That's what I'm talking about there, Willis. Okay. So I had my combine mode and everything. I had it backwards. So I had my mirror mode set I was missing one key element. I had it mirrored. I was trying to go from left to right when I want to basically duplicate, the things that are in the top left quadrant, I want to be mirrored over, not only to the top right quadrant, but also to the bottom right. And so with that checked, it's now flipping appropriately. Okay, my apologies on that little bit of a screw up. Now, notice how I am basically I only have one flourish here and here. If I look at my 3D view, let's go side by side for a moment. Side by side. You can see in the mirror mode that it's created not only my horizontal, running across, but it's also created that everything from the top right quadrant over to the rest, here. And so notice that on this flourish how I'm overlapping the line, and notice in the 3D view how it's blending those two parts together. Well, I want to back this up just a little bit, and as I back it up, you'll see it start to kind of separate on those parts there. There we go. What I was looking to have was, let me bring this down into full view. What I want when these two parts come together, I'd like to have a little bit of space between this swirl here and this swirl here, which is what I've got. If I wanted to bring it back over to the right, you can see how it kind of blends that together and everything. And I want a little bit of meat right there. I don't want it to be so thin right on this inside cut that gets done. So I'm just basically kind of backing it up a little bit to get a little bit of meat in between there. Okay. All right. So now let's come in and zoom out on my view. Let's zoom to fit. Same thing here. And straighten that back out. Now on my side panel here, you see how I'm away from the line, so it's got these two parts separated. Well, I'd like them to be joined together in the similar fashion as the top to bottom, so I have to make sure that that part overlaps that dividing line, that zero line. And a part that, once I overlap, you'll see that those parts start to blend together. And again, I want, and my simulation quality is very poor right now. I need to go in and set the simulation quality to much higher. But I want a little bit of meat between these two coves, and I can go a little bit more. So I'm going to go one more bump. There we go. Goody goody. Okay. All right. Let's zoom back out. Zoom out in the 3D view is this little icon here. We're going to straighten it back up. That Z is the full-on Z view from a top view down. And over here. All right, so this is what our model is going to look like here. On the right side, this is going to be our 3D view. Now we need to start creating some toolpaths and things and you know, create these cuts and stuff. But before I do, I also want to kind of make some copies on the other side so I know where my rabbits and things are going to be. So let's go back. Let's get out of the 2D view. Just maximize our, get out of the 3D view, our tiled view. Maximize our main view and then zoom to fit to bring our board back into view here. All right, so what I'm going to have is I'm going to have a rabbit pocketed out on this back side of this board so that my picture frame, my canvas, my whatever can fit in there. And for that, I'm going to use those master boundaries. I'm going to turn off my corners and my layer 1, and I'm going to turn those master boundaries back on. And with those active, I'm going to copy them to the other side. Copy to the other side. Okay. That way, now I can turn everything back on. And on the front side, I should have the models and frames. And if I flip over, switch over to that bottom side, I should just have my master layer. If I turn it back on, I should have that on as well. Now, these two guys being on the back side, I am going to move them to their own layer for the back side because everything that's copied, on the front side is going to be on the same layer on the back side. So I do want to move them to their own layer, and this is going to be called our bottom side master boundary. And we'll give them, because we're only looking at one side at a time, so we'll make them red as well. We'll click OK. All right. So what that should allow me to do now is I should have my bottom side boundaries on the back side here. Now, for those of you who have never done a two-sided project, I want you to see something. You can see the faint outline. If I turn off these boundary lines here, you can see the faint outline of all of the vectors that are on the front side of the frame, or of the board. Sorry, not the frame, but the board. And so what that does is it helps you with layout and stuff. You can't click them when you're on the back side. You can't click or move or change anything on the front side, but it gives you that kind of that faint view showing you where those are, for layout purposes and things. So I'm going to turn my boundaries back on. Make sure that layer is active that I'm working in. And this is going to be a pocket cut eventually. Basically, all this area is going to get cut out except for my corner pieces, so it's going to get cut out. And so what I need to do is create my rabbit. And my rabbit is going to be probably about a 1/4 inch wide rabbit. So for this vector here, we're going to offset it outward by a 1/4 inch. And I'll move it off of this master boundary layer in a minute. But let's go ahead and get it created on there. We're going to offset, and I want sharp corners. I do not want to delete the original, but I do want to select the new one. And is a 1/4 inch going to be enough meat for this big mirror? Let me think. Let's give it a little bit of meat. I'm going to undo that and let's go 3/8. 3/8 inch rabbet. There we go. Give ourselves a little bit of meat. All right. Now, this rabbet here, basically when we do our pocket cut, we're going to be using these two vectors, this one and this one, for that pocket cut for that rabbet. And so when I do the rabbet, I don't want my bit leaving a little bit of meat where this center is going to get pocketed out. So I want to create another boundary just a slightly inward. So I'm going to offset that inward. Oh, not much. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Creating sharp corners. And that will give me that little overlap that I want. So these two vectors right here, we're going to move them to a new layer. And this new layer is going to be called our rabbet boundary. Okay, rabbet boundary. And let's give this a color of green. For any of you that are slightly colorblind or colorblind in any way whatsoever, please let me know. Because you would not be able to see these lines and things, with the, depending on the type of color blindness you may have, you won't be able to see these lines very visibly, and I want to make sure that you're seeing them well. We can try to do our best to, even if I have to turn them back to black or grays or something, but let me know, and because I don't want you thinking, what lines, where do you put those and stuff. And don't worry about the color. As long as you can see the lines, it'll be fine. So now I can, that's all I needed for the master boundaries layer 4. So on that bottom side master boundary, so I can turn those off. So this is going to be my rabbet here. I just lied. That's not all I need them for. I need that turned back on, because this boundary right here is what my pocket's going to be cut out of, and I need to make an alteration to it. This is going to be my pocket cut, but I don't want this piece, when I'm cutting out the square, I do not want it cutting my corner right here. So I need to create my corners. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to snap to this corner here, and I'm going to, you can still snap to that geometry that's on the other side. Even though you can't affect it, you can still snap to it. And I'm going to snap to that geometry right there. Okay? I want to do that on all 4 sides. So while it's selected, I'm just going to mirror it rather than redraw. I could just draw all 4, but while I've got it here, I'm going to mirror this, creating a mirror copy, flipping it about the job center horizontally, vertically down here, okay, and then horizontally again. All right. What this will allow me to do now is take my scissor tool, and let's turn off the rabbet boundary so you can see what's happening here. But now I can take my scissor tool and I can cut these corners away. Okay, this is going to be my pocket outline. So cut that corner. All right. So when I cut all the way through my material, to cut this corner frame out, this is where it's going to cut to. Now, one of the things we have to, we're going to have to be aware of is on these corners, when I cut this out all the way through, this is where my mirror is going to be and stuff, that on these inside corners here, we're going to have a little bit of a radius. Now, There's nothing we can do about that. We're going to have to probably take a little corner chisel or something, kind of square them up if we want it to be nice and square and stuff, because we are going to get the radius depending on what size bit that we're going to, profile cut this out. We're going to have a radius there. And if you want nice defined square corners in these corners, you're going to have to chisel them out. There's not anything we can do on the CNC to clean up those corners, those radiuses. And so now this vector here is no longer my master boundary for like the perimeter and stuff like that. So I'm going to rename this layer, and I'm going to call this, I'm actually going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this my center profile boundary. And I'm going to move this to that layer. Okay. All right. So that way I can turn that on and off. This will be my master boundary now, because that's all I need. I needed the inner part to being able to create my pocket and stuff. All right, so let's go back. We've got our rabbit. So if we look at our rabbit here, this is our rabbit cut. And our rabbit is going to get cut in the back side of this part, where our glass and frame is going to go. And so when we're going to do some little bit of pocketing right here in this corner, because remember, my profile is cutting this corner out, right, leaving that square block. Well, I can't have that square block left there because my rabbit has got to be able to kind of, pocket out those corners for my glass and stuff to sit in. So just like we did with the boundary, we need to create those little corners, those little inset corners and things. And so on this, I'm going to zoom in to one corner. We'll pick a corner, any corner, and I'm going to grab the rectangle here and snap to that corner there. Snap to that corner. And I'm going to take, while that's selected, I'm going to mirror it. Let's get kind of centered up so y'all can see what's going on here. I am going to mirror it horizontally, vertically, and horizontally. Okay. All right, so we can get rid of that profile. Oops. Did you see what I did? I created my rectangles on the center profile level. And so it put everything on there. So that's my rabbit boundary these need to be part of. So let me select all 4 of those that I just created. And let me move them to that rabbit boundary. They shouldn't be on this boundary. They shouldn't be on this layer. I keep saying boundaries because it's what they are. We're creating boundaries, but the layer, the center profile cut layer, my rectangles were drawn on, and they needed to be on the rabbit boundary layer. So with that rabbit boundary, did I do it again? I was talking and didn't. Let me grab them one more time. So grab this one, this one, this one, and this one, and move to the rabbit boundary layer. There we go. Now I should be able to turn that off and see those 4 corners there. Wonderful. All right, for this, on this inside part of this rabbit, we're going to trim away these 2 inside corners right here. Okay. Kind of smell what the Laney's cooking. Trimming away. And it's not just a single click, because there's a rectangle on top of a line. Basically there's lines overlapping here. It's going to be a 1-2 click, you know, to trim away those lines. So if you go to a single click and you're like, why is it not trimming those lines away? It's because it's trimming the one set of lines, then it's getting rid of the line underneath it. All right, so this is my rabbet boundary for that bottom back cut. And yes, yep, we can absolutely do that. Great idea, Jerry. Keyholes. Yeah. Now, I'm cutting this frame along the x-axis because the length of it is along the x, but this is really kind of, in my eyes, for me, unless I hang my frame landscape style, I was planning on hanging it portrait style, so my keyhole would be at one end or the other, because, you know, my top of my frame. Now, if I was hanging this frame in a landscape format on the wall, then my keyhole would be here in things. With the keyhole, guys, all we have to do is draw a circle. Now, it's not fair for you guys and girls with Vectric V-Carve Desktop. You don't have access to the gadgets, like the keyhole gadgets and things. So we kind of have to do your keyholes if that's something that you wanted a little bit different, or you can use those claw tooth hangers or something for hanging. You can do a kind of a simulated keyhole, but it would be a little bit different in the layout for you, and we'll see if we can talk about that. But let's go ahead and drop a keyhole. I want to kind of be and I'm going to make that a 3/8 inch diameter. So I think that's my keyhole bit is either going to be a 1/4 inch head or a 3/8 inch head. Let's go, for right now, let's go with a 1/4 inch head on it. I believe that's what it is. And click apply. It might be 3/8. Dang it, I wish I had my keyhole bit right here. I could measure it. It's probably 3/8, but we'll go with a 1/4. Now, notice something here. It looks off center, right? It looks off center, but it's actually centered on my frame. So this is these black lines you see here are that rabbet boundary. If I turn that rabbet boundary off, my circle's going to get hidden. So before I turn that rabbet boundary off, let me put my keyhole vector, and let me put this on that keyhole vector. I'm going to move it to that keyhole vector layer, so that way I can turn off that rabbet boundary, and I'll turn off the master boundary, bottom side master boundary, and so that keyhole is centered on my frame piece. It's centered on there, and when I was moving it around, that center line, you see that center line that popped up, and that's what got me. Now my keyhole is going to be cutting basically vertically, and it's going to probably be about 1.5 inches in length. So I've got my keyhole off to the side, and if you really want to be precise about where that placement is, you know, that entry hole placement, well, we have a ruler here that we can use. If we look at the move selected object, we can see that we are about 0.4551, you know, from our 0 point. I can fine tune that, make that a 1/2 inch, you know, and my entry hole is going to be a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to, from that 1/2 inch, my slot's going to be overhanging this side by a 1/2 inch for a total of a 1 inch cut for that keyhole. And so all we need is to draw that circle. So that's going to be the vector for the keyhole there. All right, let's get back over to the top side here, and let's start kind of creating some cuts. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to go into the modeling, And I want to go into the properties of my flourishes here. I want to go into the black wrench of my properties. I want to see how tall they are. Right now they're, you know, a little over 5/32, 0.16, a little under, you know, 3/16. So there's not a lot of meat to them and things. Let's go with a 3D view and let's see if we can give a little bit of beef to them. I'm going to go about 0.2. See if I can build that up a little bit. Let's turn this to the side so I can see the actual shape height. Yeah, 0.2. Looks good. And same thing here. I'm going to set this. This one's almost 0.2, so I'm just going to bring that up 0.2. Just building up a little bit. And that's going to automatically build up the other shapes that it's mirroring. You know, those two master copies there. Now, for my corner flourishes, they're about a little over 1/8 of an inch tall, which is fine. And the weave, I don't need that in here anymore. I decided I'm not going to go with the weave. We done went this far. Let's delete this weave. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our pocket cuts and our 3D finish basically, so you can see how it lays out. And then we're going to stop at the end of this when I get all the toolpaths created, and then we're going to ask questions. We're an hour in. It's 8:19. We started about the same time, 7:19. So let's get some toolpaths made real quick, and then let's ask some questions before we move on. So let's switch over to our toolpath side, and let's switch over to our 2D view. Now, I'm working in the top side first. Don't forget we got to make our holes for our alignment pins, and I'm going to do that on the bottom side, not the top side. I'll draw the circles and the holes for the alignment pins. Now what I want to do is on my boundaries and things, there's no sense in milling all of this material away, blah blah blah, you know, for my 3D models and things, but I want to use my boundaries here. So I'm going to create, and it's really, you know, I don't even know if I need a rough cut because it's not that deep, but let's go ahead and look at our model, material setup. And right now our models are right at the top. Now I want these down a little bit. You'll see what I mean here in a minute, but I want a little bit of a pocket on top of these. I want to kind of get these down in, you know, not a whole lot, but I want to go a good 1/8 of an inch down. I want these kind of sunk down into the material. So I'm going to go and, oops, too many decimal points. Normally I'm taking, you know, a few thousandths off here and there, but I want these cut down into these parts. And so I want to go 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I want 1/8 of an inch of material in these areas. And so I've got 1/8 of an inch of material above my models when they get cut. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to select my boundaries. I'm going to select my corners. Remember now, at the way we got this setup, this initial setup, we are cutting this out of one piece. I'll show you how we would set this up if we were going to create some kind of joinery, maybe a half lap or something, in a way that they kind of fit together, which would be completely different. But right now, you got to think about we are cutting this out of one glued up panel. Okay. But I will show you, we might not get to it until the end, but I will show you how we would lay this out if we were doing some kind of half lap joinery to cut these parts, these 4 individual parts, and then our square blocks, and then being able to snap them together to create our frame, which would be a pretty cool way as well. But right now, this method, this layout is cutting out of one panel. So let's go ahead and select our boundaries. Okay, so we're going to create our rough cut. And let's make sure that I'm in the proper layer here. I'm working in the proper layer. Okay, so with this, our rough cut, we are going to use the selected vectors as the boundary. Selected vectors as the boundary. And the selected vectors are going to be those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts that I have, my 4 corners and my 4, my 2 stiles, my 2 rails. I am going to leave a little bit of meat. Typically, I would, have a default of 0.04 of meat from the finish to the top, but I'm going to go with, 30 thousandths. Yeah, 30 thousandths is fine. And I'm going to raster. I got to make sure which way my grain is going to be facing. And that's another thing. If we were to cut these out of 4 individual parts and things, we could kind of control the direction of the grain. Right now, if I were hanging this in a portrait mode, my grain, even along my rails and stiles, would be running in one direction. And it might look a lot more appealing to me to have my grain running properly. So that's another reason for maybe cutting these out. But let's focus again. We're going to cut this out of one panel. We're going to raster along the x-axis, and we're going to calculate this as a 3D rough. I'll just leave it the default 3D rough. Okay. All right. Now, I've got something going on here in this corner. Let me look and see what I've got going on in that corner. That is, in my 3D view, you can see I've got my toolpath, but that corner is lacking. It's missing. So let's do a preview and let's see what happened here, and then I'll have to go back and select my vectors appropriately. So let's preview. That toolpath, that rough cut. Okay, so that that top corner didn't get cut. So let's see what's going on here with my vectors. Bear with me a second, folks. Let me make sure. All right, one more time. Let's go in here. It shouldn't have anything to do with my overlaps. Understanding that I have overlaps and stuff, that shouldn't have anything to do with that. Let's calculate that one more time. All right. What the heck there, buddy row? All right, let's my corner, my flourish, 1, 2, 3. Stand by. I'm getting let me create my finish cut, and let me see if I don't know why it wouldn't select their that. So bear with me a second. Let's grab these. I may have to do them two separate rough, two separate finish, but let's find out. Let's create our finish cut. I'm going to be using an 1/8 inch ball nose end mill. Oh gosh, do I want to use an 1/8 inch or a 16th? Let's use an 1/8 inch for right now, and let's calculate this. Okay. What in the hell? I bet you it has something to do with my mirroring. Well, one thing's for sure, I don't want my corners being cut down like that. So let's back this puppy up a little bit. All right. So I do not want my corners being cut away. I want some meat on those corners and all. So let's take my boundary here, and I'm going to hold down my shift key, and I want to actually I'm going to size this a little bit. Select the object size. On the height, I want to unlink this. On the height, I want to subtract 1/4 of an inch. And click apply. There we go. Same thing here. I want to subtract 1/4 of an inch. Hit my equal sign and hit apply. On here, on my width, I want to subtract 1/4 of an inch. Hit my equal sign and hit apply. And the same thing down here. Oops, subtract 1/4 of an inch. All right, let's take this to another level here. I'm going to I may end up taking away these three and using the mirror feature, putting these corner sconces into the mirror feature. But I want to recalculate this using the selected vectors and click calculate. I want to see if by taking away that overlap, that's what it was. My overlaps were on the vectors were throwing it off. Okay. How fun, how fun. All right. Oh, bear with me. That's correct, but that's not the look that I'm trying to go for here. I want my corners to be absolutely defined. So I need to pocket. These models down a little bit. So let's make some changes here for a minute. I'm going to go into the properties, and on this flourish here, I need to take away an eighth of an inch, negative 0.125. Okay, and oops, too many decimal points, bear with me. Negative an eighth of an inch. Okay. Oh gosh, it's killing me. Now that should be good. I'm sorry. Negative 0.125. I want to subtract that down. Okay. And close that, or let's go into this one here as well and make that a negative 0.125. What this should do now, is, and let me make sure that I still got my eighth of an inch here. I'm actually going to go a little bit shallower than an eighth of an inch. Let's go a 16th on the material setup. Too many decimal points. Might even go 0.1, but a 16th is fine. All right, let's recalculate that toolpath. What I'm trying to achieve is I need a defining little step down, a lip on my two corners here. And so I may have to create two separate toolpaths to achieve this, but let's see if this will work now. Almost there. All right, let's look at our toolpath preview. All right, it looks like I'm getting my step down, so let's reset that preview and let's see if I'm getting that differentiation. So reset the preview and preview the all toolpaths, the visible toolpaths. It's previewing. It's coming. I don't have my toolpath angled in there. There we go. That's what I'm shooting for. That's what I'm shooting for. All right, what I was going for, guys, is that step down. Now we're gonna clean this up. We're gonna clean this up with a pocket cut. This rough cut here, where our bit is kind of creating that. Let me see if I can zoom into that so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, you see these little tool marks here on the edges? We're gonna clean that up. So we have that defining step down. Or is that, now wait. Oh, you're kicking my ass again. Hold on a second. Dadgummit. It's not doing it. It's actually milling on both sides. It's milling away, leaving just a little skin of wood there. That's what we're seeing. I want this block to be a defined block up above the rest of my model. Oh, Lord have mercy, Laney. All right. We're going to step back and punt for a second. I need this block here. I need two defining levels. All right. I've got to create the pocket cuts. That's what I've got to do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. So what that means is, what I mean by I've got to create the pocket cuts, my models are going to get cut to the same level no matter what. But I want a defining area of material cut out here. So I have to actually create the vectors and create a pocket profile cut. So we have to select, and I sure hope this does this when I create my mirror. We're going to select these two, and we're going to create a vector boundary. A vector boundary. Wonderful. That's what I was hoping to see. That mirrored vector boundary. All right, and then for that, I need to select for my next toolpath this boundary. These boundary here, just these four boundaries, and it's going to be a pocket cut. I am going to use my tapered ball nose end mill in here. So my cut depth, it depends on how tall I want this block to be. I'm going to try, let's start with a 0.125 cut depth. And I'm going to project this toolpath onto the 3D model. So let's change to my tapered ball nose. My biggest fear is that it not being able to fit right here in this area on the back side. And so I may need to make my frame a little bit bigger for this, but let's give it a shot, or use a smaller bit for my pocket. Let's try the 1/8 inch ball nose, and let's project it onto the 3D toolpath. Almost there. Making sure that my software hadn't froze up. There we go. All right, so we can see that there are certain areas on this frame that there's no toolpath marks. Can you see the blue where it stops, meaning my bit can't fit in there? So I may need to kind of adjust the height and the size of my frames a little bit. But let's preview the selected toolpath, and let's see if I at least am getting my pocket that I want. I should be now. Okay. Okay, I am getting the pocket that I want, but I need to bring my vectors for this boundary. I need to bring them back to where I want them. I need that pocket to cut right up to this line, and it's limiting, creating a little lip. So I'm going to create 4 separate vectors. We're going to select these 4 vectors here. I'm going to make a copy of them to a new layer, and this layer is going to be my pocket, front side pocket. Let's see here. I'm going to call it my 3D pocket. 3D pocket boundary. Okay, and one at a time, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my main layer for a minute so I can just see those pocket boundaries. And with that layer active, that 3D pocket boundary layer active, I want to go back in and resize these back up. So let's go into my size tool. Sorry guys, a little unexpected twist. So for this, I want to add in that 1/4 inch back. There we go. I want to, for the horizontal, I want to add in that 1/4 inch back that I took away earlier. Same thing here. Add in that 1/4 inch. And here. Now, while I'm here, this is my pocket boundary and things. I may need to look at my part getting just a little bit wider and kind of centering things up so my bit can fit around them. There's a few areas that my bit can't fit. So if I turn my models back on, there's a couple of areas that my router bit cannot fit in between. So I've really got to make the decision now if I want to make that adjustment now. I'd like to, I don't want to go too big. I want this defining corner right here. But at the same time, I need to create that clearance. So let's do it. Take a second to do it. I want to be precise about this. I want them all to be consistent. So on the height here, I'm going to add in 0.15. Now when this gets centered, I'm going to go 0.15 from the top left, and I should be able to click apply and just have it push it down that 0.15. If I were in the center, it would center and it would create height on the top and the bottom, but I want to push it down. I'm just extending it inward. So we've got that one. For this part here, from the bottom left, I want to extend the height 0.15. Okay, just pushing that up, that 0.15. And for this side, I want to, from that back corner on the width, I want to extend that 0.15. And the same thing over here. I want to extend this from the back bottom left. I want to extend that 0.15 and push that towards the center of my project, that 0.15 inches. All right. So now I should be able to my corner boundaries. Okay, these boundaries here, these are going to be my 3D modeling boundaries for cutting the 3D model, but my pocket boundaries are going to be the longer ones. So let's remove these. I want to move these to a new layer. Got a lot of layers going on here, but it'll help. This is going to be my modeling boundary. And I don't want them visible right now. Okay, so creating this wider boundary, that, you know, that, what did that do for me? That didn't do much unless I moved my models. So I'm going to take and make sure that the models, I'm going to select this model here and this vector. I'm going to open up my alignment tool and make sure it's centered from left to right. Okay, I'm going to delete this, all of those boundaries. This model here, if I select this rectangle, I'm going to make sure that it's centered up and down. Okay, just a very slight movement there. Didn't give me a whole lot. And with that, I'm going to recreate those model boundaries. Let's make sure that make that active. All right, in my modeling tab, guys and girls, I've got 2 of these models selected. I'm going to go ahead and create a boundary around them. There we go. All right, and I had my modeling boundary layers active. Okay, so once again, let's recalculate these toolpaths. So my 3D rough, we are going to, for the 3D rough, we're going to use the boundaries that I have selected here, that are already selected. Let's turn off some boundaries so you guys can see what's going on. So this is my modeling boundaries. And I'm going to go ahead and recalculate all of these toolpaths. So let's open this up and calculate it one more time. Okay, that's my rough cut. Let's go ahead and recalculate the finish cut. Little bit of a change, and we're way past our hour. Man, that 45 minutes just flew by when you screw up. So we're gonna, as soon as I'm almost done creating the toolpaths, we're gonna stop. And we're gonna ask questions and things, but that 45-minute screw up, it happens. All right, now for the pocket cut, I'm gonna turn my pocket boundaries back on. Okay, and for the pocket boundaries, we're going to use these. Oops, not the inside, the maroon ones. These guys here, and my pink boundaries around my models. I don't want to pocket those away. We're going to, for this, I am going to still use the 1/8 inch end mill. I think I've given myself enough room right now for it to go in. So we're going to calculate that. And what I'm looking for is, when these toolpath gets created, is I'm looking for a nice solid fill of blue, my toolpath lines, around the entire model. Okay, let's turn off everything but that pocket boundary, and there we go. Nice fill of blue all around my models. So this should define and bring down this corner area, these 4 edges, that should bring them down so my corner areas are standing proud and all. But there's only one way to find out, because my 3D rough cut is going to, when it rough cuts, it's going to hog away all that waste material. Okay. My 3D finish cut is going to do the detail work. And at the end of that 3D finish cut, all the levels of the modeling plane are going to be the same. Well, that's where the pocket cut comes in, because on the pocket cut on those 4 sides, I should be bringing it down an additional 1/8 of an inch. If you look at my models, they're kind of cut down into the material an 1/8 of an inch. So that way, when I run that pocket toolpath, it should go and remove that 1/8 of an inch. I might have said quarter, but it should remove that 1/8 of an inch. And I can tell right now my 1/8 inch ball nose is leaving a lot of tool marks. I may need to recalculate these with the 16th, but we'll, we can do that. That's not a problem. Okay. That's what I'm hoping for right there. All right, now my models are not that great looking. The 1/8 inch ball nose not giving me the detail that I want, so I would be machining this with a 1/16 of an inch. But let's go ahead and let's get this party started here, and let's pocket down the center area, because I want to create that defining look here on these inside corners and things. Let me think about this for a second. What I'm looking at, let me move this over. All right. So I've got my defined corner. Yes. Okay. That's correct. Okay. So let's go in here and let's create our, let's turn off some boundaries. And let's turn on the center profile boundary, which is that center profile. And I want to move to the other side. I'm going to make that center profile boundary active for a minute. I'm going to switch to the other side because I'm going to take this center profile boundary and make a copy to the other side of my board. And that way I have it here because I want to use this for another pocket cut. And this pocket cut is going to be milled down 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to use a large diameter bit. Remember what I said, that we have the, you know, those corners. We're going to have to clean them up with a chisel. But I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to use a 1/4 inch. Gosh, I really want to use 1/8, but I'll use a 1/4 inch end mill. And this is going to be the center pocket. Okay. What that should do now, if we look at this on the frame, is that pocket cut. Actually, I need to go a little bit deeper than 1/8 of an inch. What's that? 0.33, 0.21. Take more of that off. I want to do a offset toolpath, a little bit more optimized, and it's not. It's getting cut away eventually. Okay, there we go. This is what I'm hoping for. I might need to go a little bit deeper. 0.3353. So you see that little defining lip right there along that border. You can see that defining lip. My depth of cut for the models is 0.3352. 0.33, let me get right to it, 53. So one more time on that center pocket, 0.3353. That 53 makes a difference. I want a nice flat transition. So let's get that milled away, and you see that, you should see that defining line disappear. There we go. Nice and clean. Okay, that should give me my 4 corners. Okay, let's flip to the other side. And let's go ahead and cut this all the way through. This vector here. We're going to do a profile cut on the inside of the line, cutting through my 3/4 inch material, because this is the cut that we'll do first. Shit. Yeah. We wouldn't do it first. I was wrong on that one. 1/4 inch end mill. And I'm not going to put any tabs or anything. We would, of course, but I want to be able to see what this looks like. So I'm going to calculate this without tabs. And I want to get rid of this centerpiece for a minute. So if we flip this over, you know, we've got our corner. We still got to cut the outside away, our outside final profile cut and everything. But so far, this is what our frame's looking like. All right, let's flip it back over here and let's turn on our rabbet boundary. So for the rabbet boundary, this is going to be a pocket cut. Cutting to a depth of however thick the mirror and all would be. I'm just going to go with 1/4 of an inch right now. Using my 1/4 inch end mill, we're going to select this tool path. And let's cut that out. Okay. All right, on my rabbet here, got a little bit of meat and debris right there. A little bit of cleanup that would have to be done on those 3 corners. And I could, you know, have my router bit go extend past that a little bit to clean it up. And so what that is, that's this inside vector right here. If I have that inside vector, if I reduce it down just a little bit, let's offset it inward 1/16 of an inch and delete the original. If I use this new vector with that boundary as the pocket, then what that would allow for is these corners to be cleaned up. Okay, get those tool marks and things out of there. All right, so this would be our pocket for our back side. Our keyhole, we'll use our keyhole gadget, keyhole toolpath gadget for this. You might not see this window pop up for the keyhole, but I want to do a vertical top to bottom keyhole. The depth of my slot is going to be 1/4 of an inch. My length of my slot is going to be 1 inch. My entry hole diameter is 3/8 of an inch, so my circle's a little off on that one. And my slot diameter is going to be 3/16, the neck size of my slot. We'll click OK, and that'll create that toolpath for the keyhole. Now, when you're creating a keyhole toolpath, you're using a default bit, an end mill, in my case, my 1/8 inch end mill, because the keyhole is just using that dummy end mill for the speeds and feeds only. Speeds and feeds only. So, if we were to preview the keyhole slot, all you're going to see is just a little slice in there. You won't actually see the keyhole, but that'll be kind of a simulation of that. All right, so let's switch back over to the top side here. And we've got our cut for our frame. If we kind of flip this over, you can see the rabbet and everything on the back side. Oh, it's a little pixelated. Let it regenerate. So we've got our little rabbet where our glass and stuff is going to go. We've got our pocket. Now on the front side, we've got this outer border. And I really don't want that outer border there. And also, I want you to see this lip that you, if we can, let me see if I can pull over to this. This lip on this back side. My ball nose bit is creating that because my boundary is only going up so far, but that ball nose bit that I'm using to pocket this out, I could use an 1/8 inch end mill to get rid of that radius. I'm not sure exactly why I use my ball nose. I think just for ease of sake, because I had the ball nose in there, didn't want to have to do a bit change. But let me see if an end mill, my 1/8 inch end mill, let me see if that will clean up that tool path. All right, let's preview that tool path. I don't think it'll get rid of that lip. Yeah, no, it didn't. So you see that defining lip here. I want that gone. And so what I need to do for that lip to be gone, just like we did with the pocket here, is I've got to extend my boundary a little bit for the purpose of that pocket cut. So if I turn my pocket boundary back on, remember I called it my 3D pocket boundary, on this back side here, so my bit can extend past, I need to have it just a little bit bigger on all 4 sides. And so I'm just going to grab this, and all I'm doing is pulling it ever so slightly past this boundary line right here, my corner sconce. So I'm just going to pull it ever so slightly past. Same thing here. I'm just going to pull that ever so slightly past. Same thing here. And same thing down here. Now I'm going to recalculate that pocket tool path. I'm going to select those 4 items again. And let's turn on my model boundary. And I'm going to recalculate that tool path. And now what that should do is on that edge where we had that lip, when we cut that away, that lip should be gone, because this outside piece here is going to be cut away too, our final profile cut. So now we see that nice defined square line there and things. All right, so for the very final cut on this, we're going to turn on the master boundaries. And for that master boundary, let's turn off everything else so you can see what all's on. We're going to turn off the keyhole boundary, the modeling boundary. We're going to turn off the 3D pocket boundary. Our keyhole, our center boundary doesn't need to be on, and our rabbit boundary doesn't need to be on. Corner boundaries. Okay, just that master boundary. This master boundary is going to be my final profile cut, this outside here. So that's going to be a profile toolpath, cutting 3/4 of an inch with my 1/4 inch end mill on the outside of the line. Again, I'm not going to add tabs. We have to, unless we're hot gluing this down or something or what have you, but we will. But we're going to not do it so I can delete the waste material away so you can see the final project. But remember, we wouldn't typically add tabs and things. So we're going to calculate that toolpath. And let's kind of get this into a squared up view. There we go. So now we can preview that selected toolpath. Okay. And we should be able to kind of get rid of the waste material. And we'd end up with our decorative frame. Now on the back side, we've got our pocket for our glass and things. So we've got our pocket for our glass. How you would hold it on, somehow, you know, you get little mirror, you know, clips or something, or, you know, canvas clips, you know, to make sure it holds in there. But if we look at the front side of this, now, on here, remember what I said, my corners, the inside corners here, and let me see if I can pull down and zoom into this corner. We've got the radius of the router bit. Can't avoid that. That's an inside cut. But what I can do is I can take a little corner chisel and I can clean up these corners and square them up. You know, I can clean up those corners and square them up. All right. So this would be our frame. A lot of roundabout just to get to it. You might not like these little swirlies. You know, we can think of something else to put here in the middle. You know, these little, I call them leaves, whatever you want to call them. You know, they might not look appropriate. You might want them turned around completely. You might want something different, something that's a little bit more full, but this gives you the general idea. Glazing points. Thank you, William Edelin, for pointing that out to me. Glazing points. Yes, and Debbie Miller, thank you for the reminder of our flipping holes. Our holes for flipping. Now, that poses a very good point, you know, on this. When I cut this profile out here, my holes, if I had my 1/4-inch dowel pins, and I use metal dowel pins, let me make this my 0.25, and if I were to put this in place, you know, and let me mirror it. Okay. Now this poses a very good problem. Not a good problem, but it poses a problem. Now, on this, when I go to do this final profile cut, well, my 1/4-inch bit is going to hit my dowel pin. And my dowel pin is not brass, you know, it's a stainless dowel pin. And so I would want to resize my board and make sure that my board is just a little bit longer than my final cutout project to give me some room. When we have to think about that when we're flipping. So right now my width is about 23.5 inches. I tried to get everything in 23.5 to stay under the 24 for the mini carver. You know, this is kind of to fit, you know, underneath the mini carver type thing if somebody wanted to do this in the mini carver. But we've got to think about that. So for the mini carver users, everything would be scaled in and down. For our bigger machines that have a 40-inch cut area, we could just make the board longer because the profile cut's going to hit those alignment pins. So bear with me. I'm in a debate on which way I want to go with this. You mini carver users, you would turn on all your vectors and everything, because if you're going to scale down, you're scaling everything down. And so if I were to scale this overall, No, that was wrong. Everything's selected. I want to size off the center. Off the center. And I'm going to scale it in that 1/2 inch. There we go. 1/2 inch is only giving me a 1/4 inch on each end. So let's go. Okay. All right, this boundary here. My circles here. We're gonna back that up. We gotta scale the other side too, so I haven't done that yet. Oops. Want to align this perfectly center. Delete this other one. Okay, mirror this hole. Flip it horizontally. There we go. That's plenty of clearance to clean out that. But now let's go to the other side. And all of our boundaries are turned on. Let me select this. Okay, let's see here. Oops. Dadgummit. 21.75. $21.5. Okay, so with that, everything should be just slightly off, right? Everything should be just slightly off. Oh, goodness gracious. 21.625. You son of a bum. 21. There we go. Grab the corner and hold down the shift key and snap to it. All right, perfect. Okay, we're back to normal size now, and we've got plenty of room for our dowel pins. Our dowel pins are going to be on the back side, so I am going to move those over because we're going to cut the pocket and stuff out of the back first before we do any modeling or any of that on the front. So we're going to move to the other side for those dowel pins. And those dowel pins, we're going to create a... If you're using the same size bit as the hole, then you can do a drilling operation. If you're using an undersized bit for the hole, you're doing a pocket cut. In this case, it's a 1/4 inch hole for me, so I'm using a drilling operation. And I want to cut all the way through my material and just 1/4 of an inch into my wasteboard. So my depth of cut is going to be 1 inch with my 1/4 inch end mill. I do want to retract my bit above the cutting start depth. Okay, I want to pull it up, and I don't want it that much. It doesn't have to be that much. I'm going to go just 20 thousandths of an inch, but I want to pull it up above the cutting start depth so it pulls out any material. I don't want to, if I use no pecking, it's going to bury down, bury right straight down to 1 inch, and I do not want that. I want to peck. I'm going to calculate this tool path. It's going to warn me that it's cutting through, which I'm aware of. It's going to go into my wasteboard, and we will have those alignment holes. Okay. Now when I flip, now some people like to add a 3rd alignment hole at the top, which is it's a good idea. So if I had another hole here, 0.25, and make sure it's dead nut center on the material. I can add that into my drilling operation. What that does is when I'm flipping my board along my x-axis, there's only one way I can flip it. I can't accidentally screw up and turn it upside down or something. I can only flip it one way. So that 3rd hole is basically just a, kind of an alignment to let me know that alignment hole is just let me know, I've only got one way that I can flip this board. All right, so once again, let's preview all the tool paths for all sides. And then let's ask some questions. So let's get all the 3D rough cut. 3D finish. Well, here's the main question. Did I recalculate all my tool paths when I resized everything? Let's stop this. Let's stop this. And let's recalculate all the tool paths, because I don't believe I did. Recalculate all my tool paths. Okay. For the keyhole tool path, I can't recalculate it. I just have to recreate it. I can recalculate all my other tool paths, but the keyhole tool path I cannot recalculate. I just have to recreate it. Steve Brenneman, the pins could have gone in the center waste. You're absolutely right. Sure enough. Sure enough, they could have. Good call on that one, Steve. Steven Brenneman. Yep, they sure could have. Instead of going through all that size, all that trouble of resizing the board, if I'd have thought outside the box, or in this case inside the box, right, Steven? If I'd have thought a little bit more about it, could have put those flipping alignment holes right on the inside of the waste material. No, there's nothing saying that it has to be on the outside all the time. Very good. See, you guys teach me a thing or two. All right. Let's let me flip to the other side, and I'm going to delete the keyhole tool path here, and on my 2D view I'm going to select my toolpath circle. Let's get rid of that guy, and I'm going to quickly recalculate it or recreate it. Keyhole toolpath, doing a vertical from top to bottom, and nothing's changed. I'm just going to recreate it. There we go. All right, so now if we go through and preview all the tool paths for all sides, We've got our pocket. Remember now, the inside profile cut, that would be probably the most last thing that we do on the other side of the job. I've got it on the wrong side of the board. I got it on the back side, and it would be on the front side it should be on. And we would have tabs, unless we were securing this in a way that we didn't require tabs, like hot glue or something, but still tabs. Okay, 2 more tool pass. All right, so we get rid of our outside waste, get rid of our inside waste. We've got our backside pocket, and then if we flip to the other side, we've got our front frame. Now, of course, your frame could look like anything you want. You could do some decorative, notions in here, and what have you. But this would be our, in a nutshell, our frame. Again, corner cut. We want to square off these corners to make it look nice and sharp. Little chisel work. Get it nice and crisp corner on these inside corner cuts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's open up for some questions. I'm way behind. Steve and Alan, I missed the hour, big time, because of the screw up. We'll have to figure out a better way to do that. But we'll take a break here and see if you all have any questions. All right. Tim Miller, clicking on the corner to find the, clicking on the toolpath to find the missing corner when I was having that issue. I think it was just a case of my overlapping lines that I were using in my Vectric, and stuff. Okay, David Kinsey, can you show many users how to do keyhole cut? Okay. So, I'm gonna kind of draw it right here in the middle of the screen, where in a clear blank white space and stuff. Now, here's the kicker with a keyhole slot and a keyhole bit. With you guys, we have to, it's going to be a profile cut. Okay, it's going to be a profile cut, and so let's draw out our keyhole. And let's say that I want this to be my width to be 0.1875 and my length, my height, because I'm doing a vertical cut, to be 1 inch. Okay. All right, let's take this bad boy and drag it over here. And let's take these two parts on this end and here, and let's weld that together. And in node editing, we're going to take this span here and we're going to create an arc. We're going to pull that arc as far as it'll go. 180 degrees. All right. So we've got a keyhole slot. Now, The goal of a keyhole slot is that when that bit comes down, it plunges into this opening. It comes and it makes its cut. And by the way, I said profile. This is going to be a pocket cut, not a profile. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Let me think about this for a minute. Oh, bear with me. I don't think my pocket cut has the same feature. It doesn't. It's got to be a profile toolpath, so bear with me on this one because we got to use the lead. We got to be able to use the lead in, lead out feature, and on the leads. And what that does is we're going to do a 0 angle on the lead, and the lead length is going to be 1 inch, and we're going to lead out, so it's going to come back out of that same spot. And so if I calculate this, I want to be on the inside of the cut for this profile. I want a straight line. I'm sitting there. I drew the keyhole like a dumbass. Excuse my language. I drew the keyhole, but it should be just a straight line. I'm like, wait a minute. That thing's going to follow that profile. So let's start in the center of that circle, and we're going to come down. We got the radius of the router bit, so we'll come down to right about there. And all we're following is this straight line, not the keyhole. I drew the keyhole like an idiot. Yeah, I'm an idiot. All right, for visual purposes, let's imagine the keyhole right here, okay? But do not draw out the keyhole. Draw a straight line for where you want your cut to start and then cut to, and we need to use a lead in. So when this 1 inch lead in with a lead out, do lead out, we want to calculate this toolpath. Let's look at this toolpath. And let me see if I can get this as the best I can. So we're starting in the center of our project, you know. So that router bit's going to come, and it's going to come in, and we do not want multiple passes. So how deep do I have this profile cut? I'm an idiot. Come on now. This profile cut depth is going to be 1/4 of an inch. And it's going to be 1 pass. 1 pass. Okay? 1 pass. Let me recalculate that. Okay. Now, this toolpath is showing a lead in and a lead out on the other side. Well, we don't want that. So let's go to our lead. And let's turn that lead off. All right, stand by. My lead should be on 0 angle. I do want to lead out. I want to come back. I do want to lead out. Why the hell are you creating those 2 lines there, buddy row? Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Let me drink. Let me see here. All right, let me draw this tool. Let me reset this preview. My start and finish nodes. Let me see what my start and finish points look like. Now this is my starting point. So my lead should bring me into the cut and then out of the cut. See, I'm looking at what I'm seeing here is my red and green lines on the toolpath. Okay, so it's coming and it's leading in. It's cutting and then it's coming back up. Well, I don't want to do that. I'd like to be able to come back up on the other side, and that should be my lead in. Tim, yes, Vectric does have a gadget. It's called a keyhole gadget. And unfortunately, many carvers with people with Vectric V-Carve desktop, they do not have access to the gadget library. So we're trying to work on the workaround. No, Peter Hearn, you cannot V-carve stone unless you or granite, unless you get a granite cutting bit, V-bit, which is a couple $100. It's like a diamond tip V-bit, and it specifically has to say for granite. You can't. You know, Steven, that might no. Okay, let's go with the let me take the lead off. I'm still getting that raise there. I want to be on the line, not on the inside line. I want to be on the line. Okay. I want to be on the line. I want to lead in and I want to lead out. You son of a gun, you. No, Steven, a rectangle. No, I don't know if a rectangle would work because remember that keyhole bit. Well, a rectangle does have a start and an end point, so you might have a point there. Let me try 90 degrees. Oh. Shit. I'm an idiot. Okay. Guys and girls, what we're going to have to do, you guys and girls with your keyhole slots, you're going to have a, you're going to have a double hole. And what you're going to do is on that hole, let's draw the circle. We're going to snap to the end here and snap to the end here, creating our 3/8 .375. Make sure that this is 3/8. Okay. You're going to have a double hole on this. Let's get rid of this. All right. These first hole here, you're going to do a drilling operation. You're going to do a drilling operation to 1/4 of an inch deep, 0.25. And you are going to use a pecking. Okay. What that's going to do is that's going to create our 2 holes. And then you're going to do a profile cut on your line. You're going to do a profile cut on your line. On the line. To a cut depth of 1/4 of an inch, and no lead in, no lead out. With that, I'm going to calculate that and do it in a single tool path, not 2. We want it in one pass. One pass. And that would create your entry, the keyhole slot, and then your exit. Okay. Your entry, your keyhole slot, and then your exit. So that's how you would have to do your keyholes. You would have a double-headed keyhole, a 2-headed keyhole, and you would drill both the opening and the exit with your keyhole bit. And then you would run that profile toolpath on the line. It will plunge in on one end, cut through, and then come out of that hole that you pre-drilled. If I see any other way to create a keyhole without the keyhole gadget, I think, isn't there, Stephen Allen, isn't there a video out there, someone where they created a keyhole without the keyhole gadget? And it was designed for individuals with desktop software. I think there was a video out there on that. But this would be the quickest and simplest method. Draw your opening area. That's a drilling operation for these 2 holes. And then a profile cut on the line. And you want to snap to the center of these holes when you're drawing the line. Yeah, I think there's a video online. It's not one of ours, but I think there's a video on doing the keyholes without the keyhole gadget, and it's a pretty effective method. But this would be the alternative. And of course, your screw, you know, when you're hanging on the wall, your screw will slide in, and you're going to be centered on that, so you just have an exit hole and things. So you never slide a keyhole all the way to the end. You're always centered on that keyhole with your screw head. So this would work as well. All right, so William Edlin, doesn't this have to do with the shank diameter versus the end of the bit being wider once plunged into the material? So here it just appears as a straight cut. Yes. So in the Vectric software, the cut that you're seeing, William, is just showing a straight cut because it's using the end mill for the purpose of speeds and feeds. It's not going to show you the actual keyhole cut. It's not going to show you the end caps, you know, for the keyhole cut and everything. You'd be using a keyhole bit to do that drilling for the two ends. Boom, boom. Straight in, straight out. And then you would do a profile cut where it goes down, over, and up out of that second hole. Tim, there's a possibility. I'd have to try it first. Tim Miller said earlier on, Stephen asked about what about two lines, and Tim Miller said make two lines very close or maybe overlapping each other, with, I guess, the start point at the different ends of the both lines. That may work. I don't know how it would affect you know, the toolpath being an overlap line, because we can't have any lines overlap in a toolpath. But it would be something I would have to literally test out before I could endorse it. I've never tried it, so I'd have to test it out. David, you know, this is about the best that I could do with not having, you know, this is how you would create your keyhole slot. You would have a drilling operation for the two end holes, and you know, your keyhole slot would look something like this when it's all said and done. Let me your keyhole slot would end up looking something like that when it's all said and done, you know, when it's actually cut. Yep. Also, yeah, guys and girls, Steven has got a very good point. In the actual controller software, I manually make keyholes all the time, and he's exactly right. You can literally type in a G code in the controller software's MIDI box down below where the G code shows up when you're bringing a file. You can literally type in a G code and have it cut. So like Steven's showing you here in the chat, that would be the code. You would have G0 move, basically, the Z-axis down to negative 0.25. That's going to plunge the bit in. Then G0 Y negative 1, that's going to have the Y move, you know, if we were plunging in this top hole, that's going to have the Y cut down negative 1 inch. And then G0Y0 would bring it back to Y0, and then you would finish it off with a G0Z, whatever, 0.2 or something to bring it up above, up and out of the wood. So that G code is just missing the one final G0Z0. after that G0, Y0. You could absolutely basically manually type in the G code and do a manual cut on a keyhole. That would be the absolute simplest way to do it without having to create a tool path or tool paths or any of that stuff. So if we were looking at this from a side view, imagine that this is my bottom of my slot here and the top of my board and my router bit. I don't know how I'd be able to draw a router bit sideways, but here, let's do this. Let's do it smart. Okay, imagine this is my keyhole bit. We would align the bit over where we want to plunge in. That G0 negative 0.25 is a G code that would have the bit come down negative 1/4 of an inch. G0 Y0 or Y1, I'm sorry, Y negative 1 would, if we're coming, depending on how we're positioned on our board, but that will have the bit move over that 1 inch. Let's imagine this whole rectangle is 1 inch. All right. Now, then G0 Y negative 1 we've already got, right? G0 Y0 brings the router bit back to that Y0 position. And then you would end it off with a G0 Z, let's say 0.2 or something. And that would raise the bit above the top of the board 0.2 inches and out of the hole. So you can actually manually type in the that G code. Yes, TNG allows us to write scripts, so you can actually create a keyhole script if you wanted to. Absolutely. Honestly, in all honesty, that would be the easiest way to do a keyhole. You can position it, your start position and everything, and yeah, that would be the easiest way. All right, so let's see here. Any other questions? Peter Hearn, you heard my answer about granite. Unless you get a diamond bit that's specific for granite, V-carving granite would not be an option. Corian, yes, because that's a man-made material and it's like a real dense plastic. You can V-carve in Corian, but not granite. David Kinsey, where would I find the info on writing a script? Well, first thing is we've got certain G codes. You would find the information on Planet CNC's website. So let's see if I can pull over a window. Planet-CNC.com. Now a script is exactly what you saw up, what Stephen Allen had written out. It's basically a notepad. And so in Notepad, you would write out a very simple, the script for this keyhole bit would be G0, Z, negative 0.25. On the next line, G0, Y, negative 1. G0, Y, 0. And then G0, Z, point, whatever you want, O2, to just come back up out of the wood. So this is a script. This is a very simple, in this case, a keyhole script, cutting along, plunging in, moving down 1 inch on the y-axis, coming back that 1 inch and coming back out of the hole. This is a script. And so we would save this script file in your folder. If we go to our C drive on our computer, Program Files x86, Planet CNC, right there, I'm looking at it, Planet CNC 64.scripts. All right, so you would save it in this folder. Okay, you want to give the script a name. It is a G code that you're going to save it as the file type. So if I were saving this, you can have, whatever you want it to be. So we would name this file save as, and in the file name, it's going to be an all files type, and it would be machine dot 1 inch keyhole dot G code dot G code. Okay, very simple, dot G code file name. You would save that in this file, the script files. Now, from there, you can drop down and open up in your script list. But let's to show you where it is on planetcnc.com under blog, and in the manual. You can find about how to work, scripts. But in the blog here, you can look for the G-code tutorials. You can look for, what you're looking for is the title of the article on writing scripts. I think it'd be under G-code tutorials. Software tutorials, bear with me, we'll find it. I gotta figure out how they... Here's how to use the MIDI box tutorial that you'll definitely need to know. That's where you would type in scripts sometime. Let me see here. Using the log command, surface import, adding features, placing China plasma cutting. I know there's an article on writing scripts. How to create a spindle delay script file in Planet CNC software. So this article basically gives you the instructions on how to do a spindle delay, which is a, it's a script. So you would basically follow the instructions, but you would write your custom script. But there's a article there on creating a spindle delay in your script. So that would be that would be right there. That how to create a spindle delay script file. The fundamentals are all the same. You're just creating a keyhole script file. So that would be the article that you would use. Okay. So George, sorry that didn't have the return key entry. George, what did you type? What you're saying? What are you saying sorry for, bud? Did I miss something up above? Let me know what you mean, George, by sorry that didn't have the George, let me know what you mean by T1M6, the Tool 1M6 in the G17. Yeah. Well, all right. There you go. George is writing out a script for you right now. And it would be a negative number, George. Yes, that was a script. Absolutely. And now that T1M6 is not necessary, George. That Tool 1M6, because we don't have an automatic tool changer on the machine. I know it's in top of all the G codes and all, because that's a default setting in the post processor, but that's for an automatic tool changer. That's why when you click start, you get that message that pops up that says T1M6 is not configured. It's not required, but the G17 is. The G17 is. Yes. George, M3, turning on the spindle. That's a good idea to turn. That's a good idea. Yep. So, there you go. There you go. So George is, showing you guys a simple script. David, yes, learning about the Vectric software. That's the CAD/CAM design software and everything. But, for your machine, your controller software, you can do a lot in the controller software. The Planet CNC TNG software. And so you've got, there's an owner's manual. There's one in the file section of the Digital Woodcarver Owners Facebook group if you don't have a copy of the Planet CNC TNG owner's manual. And there's a copy of it that you can download. It's a PDF copy in the owner's manual. But reading up on some of the blog articles on planet-cnc.com, they write some articles from time to time with instructions. And the articles are good. They're good information and stuff. So be sure to do some follow up on that. And thank you, George. Appreciate that. Yep. Very good. All right. So let's see here. Yes, thank you. Corian is great to work with. Yep, yep. All right, guys and girls. Any other questions? What we're gonna do is it's 10 o'clock. We're gonna end with questions. We're gonna call it a night on this frame here. But Wednesday, I want to pick up and I want to show how to cut these frame parts out if we were going to assemble the frame together as individual pieces, at the workbench. If we had, if we wanted to do bigger pieces and all, we didn't have a big old cutting area to do a big old panel, and so I want to show how to cut these parts out individually and how we can, glue and assemble this frame together using like half-lap joinery and things like that. So we will do that on Wednesday night, and we'll pick up from there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do not see any other questions on the Facebook page, chat section, or in the chat after George's script. Now's the time if you have questions. If not, we are going to call it a night, and we'll pick up Wednesday and show how to make these frame parts and be able to join them together at the table using a technique like half-lap joinery or something, Okay. All right. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate your time. And hopefully this was somewhat entertaining and informative. It's a nice looking frame. And so, again, you can, and also next week, we will we'll change up the style a little bit. We're going to bring in some vectors and do some V carving with flat depths and boundaries and things to get a completely different looking part. This is just showing how to use some existing modeling with the mirror tools and stuff. So we will cover that Wednesday in Wednesday's class for those that wanted to see that. Bringing in vectors or images and tracing them and creating some nice designs where we can find those, nice flourish type vectors or weave or what have you. We'll even, we'll do that, but we're mainly going to be, our main focus is going to be the half-lap joinery, the assembly and everything. So we won't harp too much on the images, but we'll show where it can bring some in. But this I wanted to demonstrate with the existing 3D models, and I wanted to show the levels, how you can set the mirror mode in those levels to achieve, some unique designs. Okay. All right, let's see here. Yep, David, I appreciate you, as a newbie, and it'll get easier, but hopefully, this will give you something to think about. I mean, this can be scaled down for picture frames, scaled up for horizontal mirrors, maybe a little small piece of canvas art, things like that. You can create, and all we're trying to do is create that unique kind of stepped off where our corners are defined and things. But I will show you how to create an actual molding toolpath, an actual 3D molding toolpath in the software. You don't have to have a Aspire for it. We can create that molding toolpath in your Vectric VCarve Desktop Pro and all. So you can actually just create a nice molded piece of material. But I wanted to, kind of show this as a 3D design. And you can make those blocks, if my material would have been, instead of 3/4 of an inch, if my material would have been 1 inch or 1 1/4 inches, then I could get really some thick looking blocks here on the four corners. Really get a nice looking piece, kind of something a little bit more raw, beefy, you know? So all kinds of things. Yes, Wayne, real quick. I did have to cut it. I did have to pocket out that center, Wayne. Not necessarily. I probably necessarily didn't have to do the whole center. I could have probably just drawn a little pocket around these four corners, but I did have to pocket down these four corners. So when I created that pocket toolpath on the front and let me turn off all the. Let me turn off all the layers. Okay. On that pocket area, where'd it go? I turned it off. Bear with me a second. Oh, it's in one of these layers. Well, oh, it's right. It's been right there. It's been right there the whole time in front of me. I'm sitting there looking at it going, wait, that's it. Okay. So on that pocket cut, oops, not that pocket cut, the center pocket cut here, I necessarily did not have to mill this whole thing away. The whole because this is the center's getting cut out. So the whole purpose was to pocket down that, 0.3353 to my modeling area. I could have limited that boundary to these small areas here since this was getting cut out. And I would have been, I might have been just fine. So what I mean by I could have limited it is I could have probably come in here and drew a corner area, and let's see, where's my boundary at? Right there. And I could have used just that area right there, this little pocket right on this corner. I could have used that as the boundary for pocketing that down, because the whole purpose of that center pocket area was to get the raised corners, to get the raised corners here and things, and kind of be able to clean up the cut before, because if I would have just cut out the corner and cut out the center, well, it would have created a little lip right here along all four sides. So the whole purpose really was to kind of level it out to this bottom level here. So I may have had to just created an outside boundary for it, so it didn't have to do all of that machining. And we'll revisit that. We'll look at that. I'll redraw that, and we'll look at that on Wednesday. I'll look at that on Wednesday. But yeah, Wayne, it might not have been necessary to pocket out the whole center, but we definitely had to pocket out some of it. So we'll revisit that on Wednesday. I'll redraw those vectors. Yeah, Dan. Don't worry about if it's still ahead of you. We'll do some basics training. This is just basic shape drawing. When it comes to modeling and stuff, it's a little bit more involved because we're working with models, especially when we're working with the mirroring of the levels. and you're like, well, wait a minute, hold on, how do we get that one over there or that one over there, and things. It does get a little bit more involved, but don't let it deter you or anything like that. Just keep going with it, and hopefully you'll pick up some little tips and tricks, and we'll get back to some basics too as well. David Kinsey, molding cuts would be great. I think I asked you about adding molding cuts to the class agenda in an email. Yep. So we're going to do some molding. In Wednesday, we'll use the molding toolpath, and we'll create a molded picture frame. Show you how to draw those profiles out and create that molding toolpath, because that molding toolpath is available in Desktop, Pro, and Aspire. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for attending tonight and sticking with me for these last 3 hours. And y'all have a great night. We're going to end it here. I will talk to you on Wednesday, if not before then. Okay. Bye now.